I want you to watch this video to the end. United States is turning into something else. United States is turning into something else. Almost everything they are consuming is plastic. It's plastic. Watermelon is plastic. Pineapple is plastic. Anything fruit. Banana,
Hundreds of people on TikTok are reporting that anytime they buy produce from the grocery store, it's super rubbery and almost feels fake.
I cut watermelon for my kids, and they're all bringing it right back, saying they don't like the texture. I can't believe I got one. I got a rubbery watermelon.
And again, when this person bought avocados in Texas that felt like Play-Doh. It's even been happening to bananas.
Why is there a rubber blueberry in my toddler's snack?
The FDA is mandated by law to inspect 2% of the imported seafood, which is, I think, a very, very low bar.
The unfortunate thing is the U.S. food here in the U.S. is very toxic.
When you go to the market now, it'll say plant-based, but I read labels. When I turn it on the back and look at the label, I'm like, half of that ain't plants. How can this be plant-based?
Fortunately, Monsanto is so powerful and so wealthy and so big, they win every court case where Australians want GMO to be labelled on the products. Happens in America too, it's unfortunate.
The body is self-sustainable. What we do, we put certain foods or things in the body that the body cannot process. And these are the things that actually take our sustainability away.
The trickery that they put in the system now, how they deviled up foods and convinced us that we're eating healthy, but we're not eating healthy. And we don't understand the damage that we're doing to our bodies. So many symptoms, like we pacify them. I got a headache. Headache is normal. But you don't have a Excedrin deficiency. You got a problem. Like that's your body telling you something is wrong.
Did you know your pantry might be scarier than a haunted house? It's not just about stuffing your face with calories, although, let's be honest, that's a national sport. It's the creepy activities and spine-chilling preservatives lurking in those foods. Why? Because apparently, Big Pharma's got to keep raking in the cash.
But of course, Americans want something cheaper, easier to make. So an industry cropped up. How do you do this more economically, and how can you produce more? And then the researchers got going.
Now, get this. America might be one of the top dogs globally, but when it comes to food safety, it's like we're living in a different dimension.
Not one, not two, not 50, 160 countries have banned U.S. pork. They can't even import it into their countries.
Countries around the world are banning American snacks faster than you can say FDA approved. Wonder why a bottle of American salsa can survive longer in your fridge, longer than any self-respecting zombie in a horror flick? Meanwhile, a bottle of Italian salsa barely lasts a few days before it starts sprouting something fuzzy. Seriously, what's up with that? Could it be that these foods are haunted? Or is it something even more sinister? Food fraud can range from using cheap fillers, to cutting expenses, to lying about a product's origins, to intentionally putting broken or dangerous food on store shelves. It certainly occurs in America, where we lack effective methods for monitoring the vast volumes of food that are trucked across the country daily. According to plant-based nutritionist Dr. Bobby Price, he says,
So most people have the perception of food comes from the grocery store. Most people think that's the source of food. When I ask people, where does your food come from? They're like, I get it from the grocery store. They don't instantly think a farmer somewhere created this. And so they look at the grocery store as the source, the origin of food.
Notwithstanding the fact that these products have traveled far and wide, thereby exposing them to all sorts of chemicals and preservatives in order to prolong their lifespan, at the detriment of human health. Here are 10 of the most faked foods approved in the U.S. First up, we have U.S. pork.
160 countries have banned U.S. pork, okay? 160 countries. I want you to think about that for a second.
Have you ever taken a look at the meat section in your local grocery store and thought, are these pork chops or car bumpers? That's thanks to growth hormones like ractopamine, a favorite in U.S. farming that turbocharges animals faster than a sports car. Though many countries have slammed the brakes on this hormone, the U.S. still waves the green flag.
The unfortunate thing is that for these animals, in their animal feed, they put a compound known
United
as
States government
ractopamine. Okay, and
should take
ractopamine
more
is not
action
only
on
detrimental
this
to the health of the
to
pig,
stop
but
this
it's also
nonsense.
detrimental to the person that eats it as well too.
The
How can
catch?
people
While humans haven't been
produce
studied
a
much, the
plastic
research flickers suggest
and sell
ractopamine
it to
could rev up
people?
your heart rate like you're perpetually late for a meeting. And thanks to this, U.S. pork is about as welcome in nearly
Some kids
160
wouldn't know that
countries
this
as a
is
bull in a
plastic.
china
They'll
shop.
think
It makes you wonder,
it's
how many countries are in the world again? Let that marinate.
They'll think that,
Second
they're
on our
very
list,
important,
we have maraschino
for them.
cherries.
That-
Believe it or not, these sort of embalmed things did start out as cherries, real cherry. And those cherries, mascara cherries, were bathed in a liqueur that was fermented from the cherries, from their pits, and from leaves. And that liqueur was very famous in Croatia. So they took the cherries, they soaked them in that liqueur, and thus were born the original maraschino cherries.
Have you ever sunk your teeth into an ice cream sundae or sipped a classy Manhattan cocktail only to find yourself staring down a maraschino cherry, asking, how did these little imposters come to crash your dessert parties? Let's dig into their spooky origin story. Once upon a time, these cherries were real, honest-to-goodness fruit, plucked from the picturesque coastal trees of Croatia. Back in the mid-19th century, these cherries were soaked in local ocean brine, then swirled around in a concoction of their own leaves, smashed pits, and juices. A true delicacy that could cost you a pretty penny. But then, something sinister happened.
You would think that this is a fruit and that life is sweet and everybody wants a cherry on top. But the unfortunate thing about maraschino cherries is that the reason why they're so red is because they add a dye to it. And that dye is called red number 40. And that red number 40 is highly allergenic and highly toxic to our gut health.
Companies wanted to mass produce these cherries without the hefty price tag, introducing the world to the cheaper artificial cousins we meet today. Jazzed up with something called Red Dye 40. And what, pray tell, is this Red Dye 40? Derived from petroleum. It's a substance so unnervingly artificial that some studies link it to hyperactivity issues like ADHD.
At Oregon State University is really the father of what we now know as the maraschino cherry. And indeed, the university, believe it or not, still gives a course on the maraschino cherry. So you know that they've done a lot of work on this. Well, anyway, Wiegand figured out that you don't really need alcohol in order to preserve these things. Sulfur dioxide, which is generated from metabisulfite, that worked. But the trouble was that the sulfur dioxide also destroyed the flavor and the color of the cherries. So what do? You add some color, artificial color. The one they used was FDC number 4 in those days. Eventually they had to change that when there were some toxic issues with this. So now it's FDC number 40 that is most commonly used in the maraschino cherries. And to make them more flavorful, they added some benzaldehyde.
Despite these creepy claims, the U.S. keeps its doors wide open to all artificial food dyes. Meanwhile, other countries are ghosting them faster than a bad Tinder date. Makes you think, doesn't it? How many other eerie ingredients are lurking in your pantry right now? Parmigiano Reggiano cheese.
Cheese on everything, but real Parmesan cheese.
Commonly known as Parmesan and referred to as the king of cheeses, this culinary monarch is the Elvis of the cheese world, beloved worldwide for its unique taste. Yet many Americans might never have tasted the real deal.
Parmesan cheese grated right in front of you. But what about the grated Parmesan cheese you buy at the local supermarket? You'd expect it's 100% cheese.
When you sprinkle that Parmesan on your pasta, is it truly royal or merely a pretender? Dive into the spooky truth of Parmesan fraud in the U.S., where regulations are lax, allowing anything labeled as Parmesan to include fillers like wood pulp and other cheaper cheeses.
Freshly grated Parmesan tends to clump up and stick together like this. So it turns out that many manufacturers add an additive called cellulose to keep Parmesan cheese from clumping up in a jar. It's supposed to make it a breeze to sprinkle on your food.
So beware, your next sprinkle might just be a cheesy masquerade show. And turmeric? The golden child of the spice world, famed for its role in Ayurvedic medicine to combat inflammation, and its starring spot in Asian cuisine for that rich, earthy kick and stunning golden hue.
It's the benefit of turmeric. It's an anti-cancer herb. It is also the best anti-inflammatory herb. So very good if someone has inflammation, it'll get the inflammation down.
But hold on to your spice jars, because all that glitters might not be gold. Some crafty manufacturers are playing dress-up with turmeric, dabbling in a bit of deceptive dazzle by adding dyes like Mentonil yellow. Want a brighter yellow? Why bother with nature when you can fake it till you make it? And it gets spicier. Mix-ins might include cassava, which, spoiler alert, is downright toxic when raw, or other less illustrious cousins like white ginger and wild turmeric. But the real horror show? Some turmeric has been jazzed up with lead chromate. Yes, that's right. Lead poisoning might be just a spoonful away. So next time you reach for that vibrant yellow in your dish, maybe ask yourself, is it turmeric? Or are you just playing culinary Russian roulette? Perhaps it's safer just to grab the yellow food coloring and call it a day. Don't forget honey. When you feel the itch for a dollop of honey, beware the bear. That cutesy bottle might just be housing a horrifying hoax. Yep, that sticky, sweet illusion could be faker than a $3 bill.
Filtered honey sits in the supermarket on the shelves. They heat it up. It ruins the antioxidants. Raw honey is filled with antioxidants. This can do wonders for the health of your body.
Many crafty honey makers play a chilling game of switcheroo, trading genuine nectar for ghastly goop to pad their pockets. Shockingly, a third of the honey sold around the globe is tainted or totally bogus. So next time you shop, remember, those gleaming jars might just be filled with golden lies. Olive oil, particularly extra virgin olive oil, holds a revered place in many kitchens worldwide. But its high demand and premium pricing has made it ripe for fraud. Astonishingly, up to a third of olive oil traded in the US is adulterated or outright fake. This might feel like someone swapping your favorite designer wear with an imitation while still charging you full price. Distinguishing between legitimate and counterfeit food, such as extra virgin olive oil, may appear difficult at first. It's like being asked if you can tell the difference between twins who have opted to spend their entire lives dressed similarly. A few pointers to differentiate both are in the taste and the scent. Genuine extra virgin olive oil has distinct flavors, truly fruity notes, followed by a peppery finish that tingles your throat slightly. And it should smell fresh, like freshly cut grass. Next is maple syrup.
So the natural sweeteners that we use is either raw honey or maple syrup.
Think about your favorite pancake or waffle topping. Is it that thick, sweet maple syrup? You may believe you're pouring 100% pure goodness onto your breakfast treat, but here's a sticky truth. Half of what's labeled as such might be fake maple syrup. Frauds in the food industry are nothing new. But when it comes to our beloved Pancakes companion, things get personal. Maple syrup production has ancient origins.